This is from the Daily Caller. I'll put a link below. The Trump administration is becoming strangely anti-gun. This is dated June 13th, 2019. President Trump stands to lose voters in 2020 if his administration undermines the Second Amendment. Unfortunately, that is exactly what's happened. Consider the facts of the last several weeks. First, Attorney General William Barr announced the creation of a working group to consider ways to enforce the Lautenberg misdemeanor gun law. Let me turn that up just a little bit so you understand what it is. All right. That was a 1996 ex post facto law. It was a major victory for gun control groups. It imposed a life gun ban for a crime such as minor as spanking your kids or spitting on your husband. Also, it banned disarmed police officers too, retroactively. You can't pass a law retroactively that goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. It's against the Constitution. So then, secondly, at the request of the Justice Department, the Supreme Court turned down a petition to review whether suppressors are protected by the Second Amendment. They didn't want it to go through because it would do away with their 1934 gun law that was placed underneath the Internal Revenue Code, because Congress has never had any constitutional authority vested in them. They weren't granted that right. They have enumerated rights only. You can't put something under that or under the Commerce Clause, because the Commerce Clause was only meant to be, the original intent in the Federalist Papers was to stop the states from adding taxes and tariffs on goods that move through their state. And they wanted to have a free flow of trade, so they put the thing in called the Commerce Clause. And it stopped the different states from, adding tariffs and taxes and padding some politician's pocket. So then, at the bequest of the Trump administration, roughly 500,000 bump stock owners continue to be outlaws, which challenges their ex post facto regulation ban continues to drag on through the courts. Then Nancy Pelosi loaded up the Violence Against Women Act. That's that Domestic Violence Lautenberg Act. And they wanted to reauthorize it with realms with lots of gun control. Under Section 801, 802, anyone you've ever dated can bring a secret ex parte proceeding to strip you of your guns and of your 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendment rights as well. Now, I want to get back to this ex post facto thing, the Lautenberg Act. They passed that in 1996. Now, all these people who were having problems with their wives, instead of contesting all of this stuff, they pleaded no contest. They just wanted this out of their way so they could get on with their life, and they still had their rights. They could still go out and purchase firearms up until 1996. So what is the government going to do? Going to say, well, we want all your guns now. I'm sorry, you can't pass a law after the fact and then come and take somebody's firearms. It don't work that way, buckwheat. So that's another thing. You cannot, it can't be legal for you to buy firearms before 1996 and then turn it illegal to own or possess them or whatever. You can't do that. You can't change your mind. You can't you can't justify denying somebody their rights. You can't go all the way back to Adam and Eve. You just can't they can't change their minds and take away your rights. And that's just what they're doing. Most of these guys, when after they filed the no contest and they paid their fines and whatever, then they got their divorce, and most of the guys got the custody of their children after a psychiatrist deemed their wife unfit to have the kids. Now, when they got divorced or when they were going through the domestic violence thing, there was no any papers or anything that denied these people the right to go buy firearms. Nothing was wrote up. They didn't consider you a threat. Had you been considered a threat at that time, I'm sure they would have sent you for mental health, to discover what there might be wrong. But they didn't do that. You can't be denied your rights when you already had them from before. That's why they call it ex post facto. You can't do that. But anyway, you can't be denied your rights, and that's what the heck they're doing. And they're trying to make this a bigger scope. They want the socialists in this country want your firearms, and then maybe next year or the year after, maybe they can then inject you with the chips, and you don't have no means to fight back. Your firearms are there to stop the government. They are also there to protect you, because the police can't be there for you all the time. Like I said, the government has no authority. It's beyond the scope of authority granted to Congress. They can't put it in the Commerce Clause. They can't put it anywhere except up their behinds. They do not have the constitutional authority. You got to remember what these people do. They got these so-called constitutional lawyers up there. They never studied the Constitution. They only studied what other judges said about the Constitution, making the judge the law and not the Constitution. They got to go by original intent. If you look up the original intent of the Commerce Clause, it's just as I spelled it out before. It's to stop the states from enacting tariffs and taxes on goods flowing through their state. That's all the Commerce Clause is. There's nothing more than that. They can't stick firearm laws in there and use the Commerce Clause to support those firearm laws. It's unconstitutional. If you look at, the security of a free state and all this good stuff, the rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There's no subparagraph A, B, C, D under there which would stipulate what an acceptable infringement would be. Therefore, all infringements against your firearms is forbidden. And the states can't do it either, because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. If Congress can't do it, neither can the states. Thanks for watching.